night, looking out through my eyelids. How the world gets so screwed up. Was it something that I did? I get up and pace the floor. What can I do to make a difference? Maybe I should go back to bed now. I can't change the world tonight, because I'm only one, but still I am one. It may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple in this great big pond. Looking through the prophet's veil, I see fossils of ancient rivers. How the waters all dry up. Could it be I'm a killer? My head's spinning round and round. What can I do to make a difference? Maybe I should just give up now. I don't know how to make this right, because I'm only one, but still I am one. It may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple in this great big pond. Celebrities and senators play up how we are different, using hate to their own ends. Sometimes I catch myself listening. Well, can't they see that love trumps fear? What can I do to make a difference? Maybe I should just fit in now. I don't know how to fight this fight, because I'm only one, but still I am one. And it may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple. I am only one, but still I am one. And it may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple in this great big pond. Oh, you can start a ripple. Ripple in the pond. Yes, we can. I think we can. I know we can make a difference if we try. I know we can make a difference if we try. Just love one another. Teach compassion. Be kind to your neighbors. Yeah, yeah,
So our first reading today is by Reverend Quinn Caldwell, and it's called Jesus a Little Much. Jesus said, "Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot accept my word. You are from your father the devil, and you choose to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning." That's from John chapter 8. Caldwell writes, "I reached a major turning point in my relationship with Jesus when I realized what a jerk he could be. For the first big chunk of my life, the only Jesus I knew was, for the Bible tells me so, eyes like limpid pools version. I know now that there are people who grew up starving for that Savior. But honestly, lovey-dovey Jesus didn't do much for me. Probably I was taking him for granted. Then I read the Gospels and found that Jesus wasn't anywhere near as huggy as I'd been led to believe. Compassionate, yes. Moved by pity often. Also impatient, exasperated, sarcastic, ornery. The quote above, that's how he talked to the people who liked him. And then there was the time he publicly disowned his family for being annoying. Even when he suffered the little children to come unto him, it was primarily so he could use them as an object lesson. He screamed at sea storms, then scolded his followers for having questions about it. He was a little much. I'll follow him anywhere. I'm not super interested in active listening with sustained, sympathetic eye contact Jesus, but a Jesus that's holy and grumpy, empathetic and impatient, righteous and angry. He feels like a real person to me. One who understands human nature and still has no time for my bull, who loves me and still can bite my head off sometimes. That's a human God I can get saved by. And this is Reverend Caldwell, who's a UCC prayer. Please put this in your words of understanding. Jesus, I bet I'm not supposed to call your short-temperedness an imperfection. Whatever it is, it's the thing that lets me fully meet your love. Thank you. Amen. And so with that, I think that is fitting time for us to hold our joys and our sorrows.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. People get ready, there's a train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is a key, open the doors and board them. There's hope for all those who love the most. There ain't no room for the hopeless sinner who would hurt all mankind just to save their own. Have pity on those whose chances grow thinner, for there's no hiding place against the kingdom's throne. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. Don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord.
All right. Thank you for that time of silence. Looks like we have some joys and sorrows coming in. Our first deep sorrow is that Sherry LeBlanc of First Church passed away this week. We light a candle. Dion DeVille writes that there's bittersweet joy that my Lake Charles family is safe, although this is largely because they hadn't yet gone home after Laura. Joy that Nola dodged another weather bullet. Let's put 2 candles for that. Thank you so much. Howard Milky writes of the beautiful weather just before and after Delta roared past to the west. We are fortunate and joyful in New Orleans. John Paget wrote, joy, still with family. There is a joy indeed. Jim O'Neill writes that our hearts reach out to our neighbors in Southwest Louisiana. Very true. I send a joy to be with this community and all our imperfections. I also hold a sorrow for the suffering in Louisiana and beyond. And now let us light 2 final candles. One for all the joys that are not yet spoken, all the ways we're starting to see some sunlight through the clouds, just a little bit of happiness in our day-to-day, all the ways that we're finding joy. And of course, this joy is often found and can be found amidst sorrow as well. So we light one last candle for all the sorrows that we have yet to speak. Know that we hold you in those joys and in our sorrows. I'm going to move today into our offering. So listen, Community Church Unitarian Universalist, we're a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do this sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. As you can see in our text box, there are so many different ways to give. And we ask that each of you, members and friends, week to week, but also particularly today, think deeply about a pledge to our Community Church UU. Now, all that we're trying to do, all the ways we're trying to swing from the fences, and we will get there, are because of your support. We are a self-sustaining congregation. And also the ways that we do that, including time for staff and ability to do this, that's your support as well. Your support, too, lets us start to think about moving out in our interdependent web, how each of what we do continues on and on and on. What we do here matters, and what we do out there matters. They both matter, and it matters that we support each other in this work. So we thank you for any gift that you give us in this time.
Now is the season for tilling the ground, thanking the earth for gifts profound. Now is the season for tilling the ground and growing our circle of love. Now is the season for sowing our dreams, hearing the truth inspires new themes. Now is the season for sowing our dreams and growing our circle of love. Now is the season for weeding out hate, overcoming its crushing weight. Now is the season for weeding out hate and growing our circle of love. Now is the season for harvesting change, ancient patterns to rearrange. Now is the season for harvesting change and growing our circle of love. season for sharing our grace. Cherish the stories in every face. Now is the season for sharing our grace and growing our circle of love, and growing our circle of love, and growing our circle of love.
And with that, I'm going to have our final reading for today, A Field Guide to Getting Lost, an excerpt from Rebecca Solnit. Now think of this as you listen to this in your own personal life, in our church life, fitting, and particularly in our country today. The people thrown into other cultures go through something of the anguish of the butterfly, whose body must disintegrate and reform more than once in its life cycle. In her novel Regeneration, Pat Barker writes of a doctor who knew only too well how often the early stages of change or cure may mimic deterioration. Cut a chrysalis open, and you will find a rotting caterpillar. What you will never find is that the mythical creature, a half caterpillar, half butterfly, a fit emblem of the human soul, for those whose cat of mind leads them back to seek such emblems. No, the process of transformation consists almost entirely of decay. But the butterfly is so fit an emblem of the human soul that its name in Greek is psyche, the word for soul. We have not much language to appreciate this phrase of decay, this withdrawal, this era of ending that must precede beginning. So I don't know about you, but I have upon occasion been called a bit much. There was the time I made a giant papier-mâché white whale head to dress as Moby Dick for a non-costumed, unbeknownst to me, New England Halloween party. Or the time that I spoke passionately and politically as a Unitarian Universalist minister on the Supreme Court steps in support of reproductive justice. Then there were the times where I stayed present in debates and discussions and technology during worship, refused to leave when it got hard, right when we started to do the work. All of us here, whether in political organizing, church relationships, or questions about whose turn it is to do the dishes. A bit much can come in many forms. And so I ask us all at Community Church UU today, might we, in this time, all of us, aspire to be a bit much? And also, these days, just about everything seems a bit much. From the daily news barrage, to the protests in the streets, to COVID-19 exhaustion. But the United States has been through a bit much that may seem like too much before. So around this time, in fact, this month in 1860, the United States was increasingly divided over sectional disagreements, primarily the extension of slavery into other American territories. In the presidential race was incumbent President James Buchanan against candidate Abraham Lincoln. And let me tell you, the race was as messy, nerve-wracking, and vital as it is today. But I'm not interested in the candidates, as fascinating as they were. No, I'm interested in the people. Namely, the people who became a bit much for justice, a bit much for equality, a bit much for fashion. They were called the Wide Awakes. So the Wide Awakes were a group of young men and women who coalesced around issues of racial justice and immigrant and worker rights. They were famous for their shiny capes and lanterns held aloft as they marched and danced and caused a scene campaigning for Abraham Lincoln. Those capes had a protective function. They were made of oilcloth. Actually, I think a bit like this, actually, which resisted, except much shinier, which resisted the drip of kerosene lanterns. But oilcloth's shiny effect helped the marchers' caped style and message spread across the country. This is going to sound awful, but in some ways, they were like social justice influencers. Because there were wide awakes numbering hundreds, thousands, marching in almost every northern city. And make no mistake, they were a bit much for their time as well. According to the New York Times, Southern newspapers reported completely unfounded rumors of violence by radicals and called for armed militias in response. Does that sound familiar? In the meantime, in the supposedly more sympathetic North, the Bedford Gazette of Pennsylvania, which operated halfway between Gettysburg and Pittsburgh, reprinted news of a Boston parade, alarmed by 100 black marchers, right side by side with white men and shouting for Lincoln. The paper asked, "White men of Pennsylvania, can you, will you support such a party?" The very thought of black and white folks marching together for a shared cause, particularly as they seemed to be having so much fun, was a bit much for Pennsylvania. It reminds me of the time that some of us at CCUU had the opportunity to march toward the site where Confederate General Robert E. Lee's statue was being taken down. A small group of counter-protesters stood in front of the long-deceased general's statue. They were wearing homemade paramilitary gear and ready for a fight. Imagine their surprise when a multicultural mass of New Orleanians danced toward the statue to the music of Bounce Queen Big Frida. It was a party, a celebration as only New Orleans could do it. It was a bit much. It reminds me too of times at Community Church when we might be construed as a bit too much. So we're situated in Lakeview, our physical sanctuary for those who have not had a chance yet to join us here. It's a lovely neighborhood that still holds a reputation and remnants of insularity and racism. Much of that is in no small part because of its close proximity to the House district that elected David Duke, the ground wizard and founder of the Louisiana-based chapter of the Ku Klux Klan, to the House of Representatives in the late 80s and early 90s. Neighborhoods are not monoliths, and times change. But our sign outside our sanctuary, proclaiming that Black lives matter, women's rights are human rights, no human is illegal, could be seen by some neighbors as a bit much. It's also seen by many as a welcome, an affirmation of their existence, a callback to the justice-filled Jesus as a bit much that many Christians seem to have lost sight of today. I have seen folks in this Lakeview neighborhood take pictures of our sign, or stop and smile, or leave a book in our little free library. Our a bit much of a church becomes not only a conversation piece, but a place of connection, even for folks who may never walk through our sanctuary doors. And as we know, entering our sanctuary doors looks a lot different this year. Since mid-March, we have had virtual services, starting in living rooms. First mine, and then a myriad of CCU folks as they preached week after week, embodying a shared ministry with perspectives far different and beyond my own. Now we're back in this sanctuary with myself, our amazing religious education director, Cynthia Ramirez, our wonderful videographer, Red, and my family. But listen, we're not the only ones here, far from it. And listen, this is what we're trying to do today. This is how we're trying to be a bit much, and we're gonna get there. Over in Seattle, our incredible communications and technology genius, Valentine, is helping us stream services to a wider audiences. spreading a progressive faith message. In Boston, our virtual music director, Cindy Scott, is providing us with sacred music, which we will hear next week, that helps us connect to the sacred in a place beyond words. And here in our gatherings, and this will grow and get better as we open our virtual sanctuary doors even wider. We have welcomed folks everywhere from Thibodaux, Louisiana, to Charlottesville, Virginia, to Mauritius, off the eastern coast of Africa. This time, as hard as it is providing us with an opportunity to connect with far more people and better understand what access can look like. Whether for its people too nervous to walk through our sanctuary doors, to folks who have never been able to physically join us, who can now enter into worship through clicking a link. Listen, I'm an extrovert, a hugger, a minister. I am so looking forward to the day that many of us can physically be together and not have to worry about all the technology. But this time has also provided us with a beautiful opportunity to reconnect to members who've moved away and to canoeily connect with spiritual searchers who found us virtually. And here's the thing. Once we get this down, this reaching out virtually to more and more people, when we can also safely return to our church, our goal is to continue to connect virtually in worship as well. And that's so that our embrace, our sign of welcome, is far bigger than our church banner outside. We want to be a bit much as Unitarian Universalists, sending out our religious vision of love, justice, equity, and compassion as far and wide as we can from our little sanctuary on this Lakeview Hill. And we need your support, all of your support, to help make that a reality. Now, this year has been rough financially for many folks, not in the least churches and nonprofits. We are here at Community Church UU, thanks to church members and friends' generosity, as well as the strong fiscal management of our church volunteers. We have stretched, gotten creative, been a bit much as we lurk to find ways to not only survive, but thrive. And this church needs your financial support if we are to grow in our sacred work. Our virtual reach can be so much more and perfected if we can continue to fund the small, very small, but essential position of our communications and technology manager, who can do things in 1 hour that would take many of us, myself included, 1 year to learn. I think it's telling that we didn't have all the pieces today. And so when we have that all back together again, I'm excited to see what we can do. Rebuild our website from scratch. Valentine did that. Help us connect and get our UU message to more folks through a myriad of online platforms. We've been doing that. Figure out streaming technology and worship logistics so that we may be spiritually present, even from our living rooms. We are working on it. You can help us let our Unitarian Universalist progressive faith be known to more folks, to more generations who are hungry for our message, longing to join a spiritual community such as ours. If only they knew who we were and that we're here for them. We can fund that. We can help make that happen. And speaking of deeper ways to connect, as sad as we were to see our beloved Bennett Britt retire from his role as CCUU music director, but not retire his connection to our community, we also have an opportunity to consider where we go next for our music program. In this time, in this place, New Orleans, what are the possibilities of what sacred music might look like? What brings us comfort, courage, and challenge beyond words? The incredible musician, teacher, and organizer Cindy Scott, who has been a part of our community for years, has stepped in for the next months to help create powerful worship experiences and help us begin to envision what a music program would look like as we enter the new year and search for a permanent staff person. And to create that vision, to find that quality and connection to our faith community, we need to ensure that we compensate with a fair, equitable wage. Because justice, always, always, always begins with us, with how we treat each other in here as we advocate for larger issues of justice, particularly economic justice, out there. Which brings us, of course, to our faith in action, our deeds, not creeds, our justice work as a community church. I am immensely proud of our work as a sanctuary church, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of undocumented communities, and in particularly supporting the Diaz family as they maneuver a labyrinthian American immigration system. I'm so grateful for our long-term partnership with the Red Flame Hunters, the all-youth Mardi Gras Indians, with everything from financial support to sewing skill swaps to helping build their new outreach center, following their lead in making change. And our goal for this year is to become a bit much in our justice work too. Namely, that we help our wonderful folks who are doing crucial individual actions in everything from environmental to reproductive to racial justice find a place to help connect, communicate, and get more of us CCUUers involved, and to help us grow. Namely, we want to help you get in where you fit in spirit and in action. We've already begun to sow the seeds that have grown this month with an enormous response to voter advocacy work. From CCUU volunteer poll workers to voter registration texters to socially distanced protesters. But November 3rd, however it is not an end date. Our Unitarian Universalist values have always been above and beyond who is in political office. Our UU values ask us to grow and learn and advocate and protest and connect for compassion and equity throughout our lives. That is not only what our faith calls for us to do, that is our faith. Our own Wide Awake campaign will not end with an election. It will continue for generations to come. And since we're in it for the long haul, we must have some joy as well. Or in this case, a little fashion. You read it? Do you have yours? Oh, I'll bring it up here. All right. Ms. Cynthia has one as well. So just as the Wide Awake's oilcloth capes provided protection as well as lovely styling, we too have protective measures that also provide a fashionable and timely message. I present to you our Community Church Unitarian Universalist face masks. As you see, our chalice is here in blue, in CCUU. It speaks of hope and commitment. Each pledge unit, a family or individual that gives a pledge this year to CCUU will receive one of these face masks so that we may spread our message of Unitarian Universalism only, far and wide. And though our mouths may be covered outdoors, we can and will speak with bravest fire. A bit much indeed. But a bit much need not only come in the form of fabulous fashion or activism. It comes in care too. And we at Community Church UU are always a bit much when it comes to care. Whether it be church members falling ill and our church meal train overflowing their refrigerators, or continuing online religious education and gatherings from children's RE focusing on art and justice to chalice circles of deep sharing, or the calls and check-ins, letters and emails we have sent to each other in this time, some planned by the church, others spontaneous, to help folks not feel so isolated, not feel so alone. The days and weeks, months, and perhaps years to come may not be easy for ourselves, our church, and certainly for our country. Because while I believe we have and will have moments of even a bit too much beauty and overwhelming joy, like a butterfly's wing catching in the sun, we are, many of us, in this country and in our own lives, as Rebecca Solnit's reading today notes, in a difficult state of transformation, in an era of ending that must precede beginning. And so, as a transformational religious faith, one that believes that from the moment of our first newborn cry to the moment of our last drawn breath, we have the capacity to learn and connect to something far larger than ourselves. This is our moment as Unitarian Universalists, to live our values and help others find our urgent and essential message of grace and growth. And we need you, every one of you, to help us make this ambitious vision a reality. Piece by piece, action by action, and yes, dollar by dollar. As we begin our stewardship campaign in earnest, we ask that each of you give as you are able to help us thrive in this crucial year with the resources we need to make a difference, spiritually and ethically, in our individual lives as well as in our community, in here and out there. There will be more follow-up in the weeks to come and a bit more info how to give. And, important note, if you have been affected financially this year, we ask only that you give what you can. We thank you for all the gifts that you bring to this community. If you have been less financially affected, we ask that you consider giving more than in the past, helping support the church community as a whole so that we may all receive and in turn give in a myriad of ways. Whether you are a member or a friend of the church who wants to support our Unitarian Universalist message, we ask that you pledge to CCUU so that we may all unfurl our wings, wear our masks, stay wide awake, do justice, love one another, and always, always, always be a bit much. Amen. For our final benediction today, we are hearing from Clarissa Pincola Estes. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that our soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. Amen, and go in peace.